Lucas Jackson. Maliciously destroying municipal property while under the influence.
I was just passing time, Captain.
Well, you got yourself some time now.
Any man don't keep order spends a night in the box. I hope you ain't gonna be a hard case.
Save your strength, cause you're gonna need it.
Stay down.
Take the grass here, boss! Get it! Get the man, boy, get the man!
You crazy handful of nuts.
Some men you just can't reach. He's got rabbit in his blood, and he runs. What we've got here is failure to communicate.
Sorry, Luke. I'm just doing my job.
Calling it your job don't make it right, boss.
You try to run again, we're gonna kill you.
Bam! Bam! Ain't you scared of God? Love me, hate me, kill me, anything. Just let me know it.
Beginning to look like you got things fixed so I can't never win out. Get out to yourself. Stop feeding off me.
Everywhere you go, I'm with you.
I could always buy a bottle.
Fifth of scotch.
What do you want me to do? Just step out in the alley? Is that it?
Big John, do you think this boy is a hustler? Sausage, rack 'em up.
Eddie, look, I've got troubles, and I think maybe you've got troubles. Maybe it'd be better if we just leave each other alone.
I got my things over at the hotel. I'll bring them over, lady. Come here.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Well, what do you want to know? And why?
You're here on a rain check, and I know it. You're hanging on by your nails. Let that glory whistle ring out loud and clear for Eddie, and you're a wreck on a railroad track. You're a horse that finished last. Now, don't make trouble, Miss Ladybug. Live and let live.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you. Wherever you may be, you're visiting with Mr. V. Oh, I always do that. Good morning, and welcome to the Film List, brought to you by chronicalization.com and visitors like you at patreon.com. It is the Film List, and today It's Paul Newman, 101. We're talking about a couple of Paul Newman movies, Hustler and Cool Hand Luke. I'm just going to pause this real fast, and I'm going to jump in here, and I'm going to say that we've got Daryl on deck with our second film, but we're going to go fast, okay? I want to try to move the show along a little more quickly, and so what we're going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about film number one, The Hustler. And what I've got here is a little film list checklist for you as you take a look. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger, make this a little bit like this. No, no, no. I still like it like that. I'll bring it up larger in a little bit, but I took some notes when I watched this movie. This is the first time I've ever seen The Hustler with Paul Newman. And I'm going to actually be sharing, let me do this. I'm going to share some video here with you. And I want to thank, where did he go here? I want to thank this guy. Landom C goes there as I play this, just a little bit of a video in the background. I hope you don't mind. Landom C goes there. We watched a little bit of his video before the show. You can go back and watch that if you want to, or you can search for this video on your own. But without irony, I say that this movie begins with no pretense. We know what's going on, and somehow we feel like we know Eddie Felson. Paul Newman's charisma climbs out of the screen and pulls you in to a very quiet place. Now, speaking of quiet, usually I have a problem when there's no music in movies. These older films have less soundtrack, but this movie is quiet, and there's a cool jazzy soundtrack that comes in intermittently, but otherwise, the only music that we get is the clacking of the balls on the table. Now, if you're a fan of pool, you will love this movie. Quickly into the story, Eddie Felson comes up against Minnesota Fats, the best pool player in the country, played by Jackie Gleason. And I want to pause this because I want to take a moment to recognize Gleason. He was primarily known as a comedian until this point. Over the Moon, Alice, right? On The Honeymooners, that should ring a bell. And this role is almost a cameo. He has probably a dozen lines, maybe a few more. But I think Gleason proves what many comedic performers have proven throughout the years, that comedy is hard. And how do we know? Because he can play this drama so brilliantly, effortlessly, the way that Paul Newman describes Minnesota Fats playing pool in this very scene with finesse, like a violin. Minnesota Fats is the acme of class. And so David and Goliath begin a marathon pool game lasting over 24 hours. I'm not going to give you the whole story, but Fast Eddie likes to run his mouth. At first, Minnesota Fats wants to start the bet at 100. Eddie raises it to 2, then 5. And things seem to be going well. But we know that can't last long. Finally, when he's $18,000 ahead, Eddie raises the bet to $1,000 per game. Now, this is a monumental moment in the movie if we are paying attention. Let me switch over here again. There we go. At this moment, we need to pay attention to the film because Minnesota Fats orders a bottle of booze. And he tells the guy to go to a particular shop. Eddie orders a bottle of booze too. Minnesota Fats goes to the men's room. He washes his hands, he slicks back his hair, he freshens up, and Eddie proceeds to get drunk. And this is where Enter George C. Scott as Bert Gordon. Now, this is 1961, before his appearance in Dr. Strangelove, yet you immediately know he's a problem. Eddie asks him to move, and he moves 2 inches closer to Fats. It's very intimidating. He's always sitting in a higher chair, and he's lit with the light coming up. Eddie runs his mouth while Minnesota Fats goes back to the comes back from the bathroom, cleaned up, and the guy behind him helps him put on his jacket. Very, very stylish. And from this point, it's a quick slide down as Eddie gets drunker and drunker. He starts by putting on his own jacket. He's mocking Fats, but Fats is able to keep his cool and hold his drink. And there's something else kind of indescribable here. Finally, Eddie's back down to $200. Drunk, exposed, embarrassed, he passes out on the floor, and his partner, Charlie, has to drag him out. In a way, this is kind of where the story really begins, because Eddie immediately betrays this man. He throws a few bucks on his chest and slinks out to the bus station. At the bus station, he hits on a blonde. Oh, there she is. He falls asleep. The blonde pays his tab. And as a first-time viewer, I, in my estimation, lose some respect for Eddie at this point. He becomes what I call a leaf on the breeze. He's looking for something to latch onto. Another score, another partner, a woman. Piper Laurie plays the mysterious blonde, who Eddie is fascinated by. She claims to be a former actress, but we know that's not true. All this resonates with me as I think about the things we've talked about on the film list, film noir. I don't know if I trust this woman. She's got a limp. Maybe she's had an accident. She's getting a little insurance money from that. But her name is Sarah. That's a biblical name. I looked it up. It's the wife of Abraham, the mother of Isaac. So is she kind of an angelic character? Eddie immediately says, let's get a bottle. Let's go back to your place. He moves too fast. He fumbles it. But the script is superb. You can tell that it comes from a novel painted beautifully onto the screen. The dialogue is subtle when it needs to be and direct when it needs to be. For example, right after he fumbles it, he goes to the bar. And then we catch the tail end of a conversation where someone tells Eddie, well, you shoot good pool, but you shoot lucky. You shoot lucky. And Eddie nods his head and agrees with him. And then we cut to this. She shows up at the train station, at the bus station, looking for him. And there's the bottle. So this is a very modern movie. It feels like it could happen today. As unbelievable as this might seem to you, maybe it's just me, but it feels like some of the relationships that I've been in. Then Eddie runs into George C. Scott again. Make no mistake, the symbols get more and more obvious as we go. Bert Gordon is the devil. In fact, George C. Scott was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for this, but of course he refused, which he so famously does. There he is. There he is. You see, he warns Eddie about what might come up in the very next scene. And as a first-time viewer, I wonder whether Bert had it set up, but Eddie's thumbs get broken, and he's stuck with Sarah. He has to go back to Bert. We get the three together on a train to Kentucky. And Bert reveals along the way that he knows everything about Eddie. He reveals everything about Eddie to us. Bert is completely in control of the situation. He maneuvers Eddie into another big pool game with $1,000 stakes. And then there are some very heart-wrenching, very real, visceral circumstances, some very uncomfortable scenes. Triggering, in fact, is the modern word. Bert cuts Eddie off in the middle of the pool game. He goes to steal money from Sarah, and I'm going to switch to this tab here because I want you to see what goes on. Sarah follows him. She drops some dirt on Bert, and Bert is forced to make the bet, the $1,000 bet, to cover his own ass. Question mark? because we immediately cut to Eddie wins $12,000. We don't get to see the pool game. I feel cheated. Now, as a member of the audience, I wonder if the whole thing was a hustle, because we know that Bert is slime. We know he's in control of the whole situation. He's the hustler. And things only get worse. More uncomfortable scenes, more heartbreaking, more triggering. And so we end up back at the table with Fats. Eddie's lost everything. But what does he have now? And will he win in the end? Because the story's not over yet. I want you to watch this film yourself. And now I invite you to the discussion in the second half of today's show. But now let's bring in Daryl from chronicalization.com. You changed your thing a little bit. It's no longer Chronicalization Project. Now it's Chronicalization
Video.
No? Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that before we
Well, I mean, I'm still doing, Chronicalization Project was about doing life history interviews. And so that's where it started. I'm trying to expand out a little bit and do a few different things. One of them you experienced at Christmas time. It's actually a fun thing in a family gathering or some sort of group setting. There's a picture right there with my sister. You set up a video camera, have a chair sitting there. We did this at Christmas time. People can kind of go up there and make these short videos. I mean, I was kind of doing it somewhat interview style. It was like, give me your Christmas memories kind of thing, but you could do anything you want. But anyway, that's one of the products I'm now offering. It's actually a lot of fun, and I've done it several times, and it's fun, and it's good. It's good. Like I say, you do it at a family gathering. It could be a good video for years to come to look back on.
Yeah, I was there. It was it was fun because it was just like, look, the camera's here, get up and say something. And the more you talk, the more people start to listen to what's going on. And then they want to jump in and give their 2 cents.
Exactly.
It was really cool.
So yeah, that's one of the products. Anyway, so I'm trying to expand the whole definition of what I do, from interviews to stories to video, recording video memories, I guess, maybe, if you want to put it that way. So
yeah,
so that's what it is.
Yeah, very interesting. So I did my little spiel here about the hustler. That was just, I just started watching and I just started taking notes, and so I feel like I just had to kind of, riff on it.
Yeah.
What do you have to
great.
add?
It's a really good movie. Paul Newman, he has already been a pretty well-known major actor for probably 5 or 6 years before this, but this is definitely one of the movies that kind of made him into a bigger star. And then the other one we're going to talk about, which is actually 6 years later, kind of cemented him as probably the largest, one of probably, I don't know, you kind of argue about the biggest star and all that kind of thing, but he was a major star in the 60s.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I saw this, I don't know, different generation. Paul Newman necessarily was a big star to me. I didn't quite understand. After seeing this movie, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it. Like I said, his charisma, and it's interesting because, of course, I mentioned here, The Color of Money was an actual sequel, directed by Martin Scorsese, starring Tom Cruise, based on a novel by the same guy. It really was a true sequel, and they put Tom Cruise in it. And I feel like Tom Cruise, he's got that charisma. If Tom Cruise had been around back when The Hustler was being cast, he probably would have been cast.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I don't remember Color of Money. I mean, I saw it when it came out. I don't remember the story of it. Is it kind of the same story as a Hustler, where it's the next generation kind
I didn't watch it this week,
okay.
and I've seen it once,
Yeah.
long time ago.
Yeah, I don't really remember the story of it. I remember it being good. I liked it.
Speaking of whether it's available, I do want to have you note here,
Oh
audience,
yeah.
that we've got a checklist here now. So, this movie came out in 1961. It is black and white. If you can't stand black and white, but you know what? It won an Academy Award for it.
There you go. Yeah.
And really important information here for those of you who are on a budget. It is free streaming on Sling TV right now. That's how
Mm.
I watched it this week. And like I said, it won a whole bunch of Academy Awards. Well, no, he won 2 Academy Awards. George C. Scott was nominated. Said, "No, I don't want it. I don't want this. I don't want your awards."
Yeah.
What a cool cat he is, man. And what do you think
He was
about him in this
he was
movie?
probably a little underrated. I mean, or I think he's somewhat less well known now than he was. He was a good solid actor in the 60s, and his pinnacle was Patton in 1969, I guess, or 70.
Yeah.
Where he was awarded the Academy Award. He turned it down, but he was a solid actor. I mean, he was a great actor back in those days. He
Again,
tended to
I
be,
didn't know he was in
yeah.
this, and you just get a whole new respect for these guys, and
I
you
want to
you
say
see, "Oh, now I get it."
I want to say he tended to be the second banana. I can't think of a lot of
Supporting
movies
actor, yeah.
before Patton where he
Character.
was the star.
Yeah.
But he was really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Great charisma again. And in this movie, man, I mean, there's such symbolism, as I mentioned. I don't want to make it too heavy-handed, but I mean, he's lit. He looks like he has horns,
Yeah.
and once or twice in that clip, you can see there's like a satyr, a statue of a satyr, and and um, the blonde says, "Oh, looks like you." I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
very
Right.
obvious.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah.
so let's move on to you.
All right.
I'm gonna drop out here of the thing, and I'm gonna let you talk about Cool Hand Luke. You got
All right.
about
So
10
Cool
minutes,
Hand
whatever
Luke.
you want to do.
Now this is the one. This came out in 1967, and in fact, I was actually just looking at 1967. I think 67 was a pretty seminal year in film. The other films that came out those years, I'm just looking at the Academy Award nominations: The Graduate, Bonnie and Clyde, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Yeah, those are probably pretty. Those are, yeah, that's probably pretty much it in terms of the real seminal films that came out that year. And Cool Hand Luke, and Cool Hand Luke is, it kind of, The Graduate's another. It's a very different film, but it's the same kind of thing of the individual and the individual's own. He's fighting himself basically, right? And so what it is about simply is a guy gets drunk. There's a scene right there. He's beheading street what do you call meters, and he gets put in prison on a chain gang. And I read somewhere, and I don't know if this is true, but I read that this film actually contributed to the end of the chain gang, because it kind of gave you an idea of what you go through on a chain gang, which is rather inhumane. I mean, it's one thing to be in prison, but it's another thing to be shackled out on the street, working your ass off in the hot southern sun. So anyway, and the other thing I wanted to mention was that this was written. There was a book written by a guy who actually lived this life. He was sentenced to a chain gang, was on chain gang for a few years. He wrote a novel from his experiences. That novel was picked up and made into this film. And so, there's probably, he also wrote or co-wrote the script. So in other words, it was written from a place of knowledge. He knew what he was talking about. The other thing I wanted to talk about was Stuart Rosenberg. Is that right? I want to make sure. Rosenberg was the director, and he had kind of an interesting career in that he started off as a television director. He directed a lot of television in the 50s and early 60s. He made a couple of low budget films, cinema films, but mostly he worked in television. And then I guess he had the chops by now to actually make a real movie with a real star. I mean, I find it kind of interesting that his debut really was, a major movie with Paul Newman, but that's what he did. So he made this. He did a great job. I think personally, I think the direction on this, it came out really well. And then he kind of sunk into mediocrity. I mean, he made some good films after this, but just I would say nothing that really is at this level. So again, it's about a guy. Basically, it's about a guy who's on a chain gang and doesn't really want to go along with the program. He's just a rebel. And again, in the 60s, this was kind of a it's kind of a theme through a lot of films in those days. And so he kind of goes with it and fights back. And when he does something he's not supposed to, the warden, that's where his famous line is, "What we got here is a failure to communicate," and basically beats him down. And essentially the struggle is to beat him into submission while he keeps resisting that. He escapes several times and gets caught. The other major theme is that he becomes a bit of a hero to the rest of the inmates. So he's kind of considered, that's basically, he won't back down. A guy starts beating him up, and he just, he keeps getting back up on his feet, and the guy keeps beating on him, and he finally wins the respect of all the other the inmates. The guy that right there, the guy in the front, George Kennedy, he actually won the Academy Award supporting actor for this film. He was a really good kind of character actor in those days. And he he's a big behemoth of a man, 6'3" and 250 pounds, whatever he is, huge. And so he starts off kind of intimidating this, Paul Newman, who's kind of I think, average height and kind of a slim build. And then he wins his respect, and they become pretty good friends. Anyway, so what else to say about it? I think it's the themes of the individual versus the society and all that kind of stuff is very heavy. But the real point is, to me, is it's a really good, what do you want to say? Paul Newman is really good in the role and brings out, he fleshes out the role so that you have a character in this situation that you really understand. I think that's the main point. You get that there's some holes in his life and so forth, but I think you get who he is. And I don't know if I want to give away too much, but it's kind of like the man against the machine. Guess who wins? So let's put it like that. So
that's interesting. Yeah. And what year was it again?
I was going to say he was nominated for the Academy Award. He did not win. To be honest, he was nominated, I don't know how many times. He probably 8 or 10 nominations.
Yeah.
And it was, to me, sometimes the Oscars, for one reason or another, they don't pan out for people. And then he gets it for Color of Money, which is, to me, is a little bit of a career award. It's like,
it's kind of like, we should have given this to you for The Hustler.
But let me, related to that, who won in 1967 was Rod Steiger for In the Heat of the Night. And In the Heat of the Night was a great movie. Rod Steiger was really good. But 2 years before that, he was in a movie called The Pawnbroker. Have you ever seen The Pawnbroker?
No.
Okay.
I've heard of it.
Well, My opinion is the greatest male performance on film of all time is The Pawnbroker.
Who?
It's Rod Steiger in
Right.
the film called The
Okay.
Pawnbroker.
I've heard
And
that
he
before.
did not win the
Yeah.
Academy Award for The Pawnbroker. And in
Oh,
my
so they
opinion,
gave
it's
it to him the next year.
the greatest performance ever.
Mhm.
And so what I think is 2
Wow.
years later, he did a very good job, but I think it was kind of a makeup kind of award. So I can't, and actually 1967, here's the best actor: Warren Beatty for Bonnie and Clyde, Dustin Hoffman for The Graduate, Paul Newman for Cool Hand Luke, Spencer Tracy for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and Rod Steiger for The Heat of the Night.
Wow.
How do you go wrong?
Yeah.
All of those were great performances.
Huge
That's
year.
got to be one of the
Yeah.
most jam-packed
Yeah.
years in acting. So
Interesting.
so anyway, that's a good, it's a really good movie. It became very well known. It's kind of a, there's quotes in there. I think the main quote is, "What we got here is a failure to communicate." It's
And this egg scene, which
and
which
the
I
eggs. Right.
yeah, I think I've seen this movie, but it's one of those I just kind of think I watched it because I was supposed to watch it and I didn't really focus on it.
Yeah.
It's in color. It is limited streaming. You have to pay for it right now.
Yeah.
Unless you have a hard copy of it. And I don't know. I guess that's that. You know what I want to do right now is I want to drop a link in the chat. I've never done. R2, calm down. I want to drop a link in the chat here because I want to invite you now to join us. It's almost 30 minutes and we're trying to kind of shorten up the show, but we always do this. We say, what do we do? What do we add to the list? It's Paul Newman 101. If we're kind of, in quotes, putting The Hustler and Cool Hand Luke on the top of the list, what else do we add to this list? He's got so many great films.
Yeah.
So add your thoughts in the chat, or you're welcome to click that link, and I'll see who wants to join in. We've got a few minutes. What do you think, Daryl?
Well, the two he did with Redford are both on my list. Butch Cassidy and The Sting. Those are
Yeah, The
both
Sting.
really
I want to
good.
mention my friend Squirrel Sniper here in the chat. The Sting is like their favorite movie. Saw it when you were 7 years old. And just to pause on that for a second, that was filmed at Universal Studios, so it's very dear to me as a studio guide. I love the story of that film. They were supposed to film something else, and they were on a break, and like everybody was on a break at the same time, and so they said, "Hey, let's make a movie on the back lot," and they did. They just shot it all over the back lot on the cheap, and it became a huge success. And didn't it win several Academy Awards?
I think it won Best Picture, didn't it? I may be wrong.
Yeah,
I
right.
think it did.
Yeah, yes, of course it did. And then they followed that up with Butch and Sundance, or was that
No, Butch Cassidy was
That's right. Butch and Sundance was
69,
first, and so it was like a chance to get the boys back together.
and then Sting was later 74 or 5 or something like that. So yeah, The Verdict is really good. I don't know if that's on my film list, but that's a very good film. Absence of Malice is actually one that is not on my list. It's a very good
Yeah,
film.
let me open the book here. You actually did write a book.
I did.
What did you see? What else did you put on here? Absence of Malice, The Verdict, Nobody's Fool.
Nobody's Fool. That's a good movie. That's one of his later films. I think it was his last Academy Award nomination. That's a good film.
Road to Perdition was at the very end.
Road to Perdition. Yeah, that's a good one. What's not on this list actually is his first. I don't know if I don't think it's his first film. I think his first starring film is called Somebody Up There Likes Me, I believe it's called, which is about a boxer, and I want to say it's about Rocky Graziano. Yeah,
He's a boxer.
Second film, and his first kind of starring role.
Wow.
And I saw that years and years ago, and I remember it was good. I haven't seen it in years, but he was also in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, which was pretty good, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
He
had those eyes. I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
Is that part of what it is, do you think? He's just able to connect with the camera. He just like looks
Yeah.
across a room and you just see him. And something you mentioned about Cool Hand Luke, which I think is the same to me with The Hustler, is he's just so relatable. You just like
Right.
you want to like this guy.
Right.
You don't even know him. You just like, well,
Even with his flaws. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, even with his flaws, and some of them are very deep,
Yeah.
very interesting character studies. These.
Yes. Yes. I
Well,
mean, he let's see. I want to just look real quickly.
mhm.
After that, he made some kind of mediocre movies in between these, I have to
Well,
say.
don't they all?
But,
They can't be perfect.
um, sometimes a great notion. I haven't seen that one in years. That was actually a good movie. Sting 73, Drowning Pools, I think was pretty good.
The
Slapshot.
Drowning
That's another
Pool.
good one. Slapshot.
Slapshot. Yeah, that's
Um,
a great one.
and then yeah, I don't know. A lot he
See,
made a lot of
that's the
movies.
see, you look at that, when I started really going to movies was late 70s or early 80s, and then when I was on my own was like 83, 84, 85, I started really going to see movies. And that's when like The Verdict was coming out.
Right.
So he was an older star to me.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Speaking of older um stars and film, what do you say, icons. We lost one yesterday. David Lynch
Oh,
passed away. I don't know if it was related to the fact that he was evacuated during the fire, but he had to leave his home up in the no, it was the Sunset Fire. He was older in age, and I was. Do you have any David Lynch films in this book?
I'm not a big David Lynch fan. Sorry.
So that's kind of what I wanted to do as well, is invite you, the viewers, to expand our horizons here.
Um,
We'll take some
I,
suggestions.
I don't, I don't know what to say about it, to be honest. The Elephant Man was a good film.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. I've seen
I
that
actually
movie. One of those
like
I watch again and again and again and again.
I like Blue Velvet. I actually did like Blue Velvet, and
Oh,
Mulholland Drive. I don't know. I liked it. Okay. I don't know.
yeah, I agree with you on Mulholland Drive. It's kind of, yeah. Blue
Twin
Velvet.
Peaks. I've never seen Twin Peaks, so I guess I never quite got onto the bandwagon with
You
him.
really got to dive into Twin Peaks if you're going to do it. That's why I never have.
Yeah.
Um, is Twin Peaks Firewalk with Me? That's one that I think I have
I,
seen
I
that.
think something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to be
The
honest,
thing,
yeah, I don't know. I never was a huge David Lynch fan.
Roland, we'll get to your chat in just a second. I just wanted to mention about David Lynch. What's interesting to me about him, when you look at his movies, people go, "What the hell is that? Why is there a midget dancing on a tile floor with a red thing?" What the choices he makes.
Right.
It comes from meditation, believe it or not. He was a
Yeah,
big
that's the
meditator.
problem. Yeah, I
That's
I
the
just think
problem.
I just honestly I I'm just maybe I'm not deep enough, but I find that kind of stuff to just be pretentious bullshit. Is to be honest with you,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just I don't get it. There's parts of Mulholland Drive that I thought was intriguing and interesting, but
I
don't.
think what he would do is use meditation to connect
Mm,
to things. He let his imagination roam, and to the point where something like last week we talked about, like, is George Lucas copying Akira Kurosawa when he borrows the structure of Hidden Fortress, or did he just basically say, hey, it's the same story always?
all right.
So I'm there's this, I forget which movie it is that Lynch put. Basically, it's The Wizard of Oz, right? Is that and it's just laid right on top of it. It's very heavy-handed sometimes if you really look at it.
Mm,
Um, and anyways, he made some interesting choices, and
he
but
definitely did. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Roland says Indianapolis. Let's start with that
Was
one.
that a film? A Paul Newman film?
Is that a Paul Newman movie? It's probably a racing movie. And
I don't remember a film called Indianapolis.
I'm going to be snarky and say another attempt by Hollywood to prove that racing movies always fail.
Yeah, right.
I just don't get it. What is it?
He was
Towering Inferno. He was one of the faces on the poster of the Towering Inferno.
Right. Well, yeah. And Towering Inferno was that. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen that, but that was Hollywood went through this phase in the 60s, 70s of disaster movies with all-star casts, and you know, they get every living anybody with a pulse that can act.
Yeah.
When this big grandiose.
I think it was Red. I think Red Buttons is in that one.
Could be. I mean, I think Poseidon's Adventure is kind
you've
of
always got some old guy with a young girlfriend too.
Yeah.
Totally inappropriately young. You're like, what, really?
Earthquake? I think that was one of those.
Yeah. Well, not. Well, yes, I love to sing the praises of Universal Studios. They were the leaders of the disaster movies in the 70s. Airplane, Airplane 73, Airport 75, Airport 79, the Concorde. Have you ever seen Airplane? Airport. I'm sorry, not Airport. Yeah, so many of them that they made Airplane. Have you ever
do remember. I remember seeing the original Airport, which is in the 60s, and and then they started ripping it off, right? And
with Dean Martin. He's like, I'm gonna land this plane, boys. Come on, bring and don't give me lane 27.
Karen Black as a stewardess flying the 747.
An inappropriate relationship, yeah.
Anyway, Tower Inferno. That was definitely one of his films. I don't know. Those are okay. Those were kind of broad. They were kind of broad entertainment films.
Audience appeal,
in those days. So
Well, okay. I want to do one more thing here. If nobody's going to join us, that's okay. Where's my link? I had a link here to a friend of mine. Shoot. Oh man, bad me. Just a second, please. Wait, this is important, you guys. There it is. In Altadena, a friend of mine, speaking of Universal Studios, former studio guide, she's an actress now. Her husband and their home and their family lost their beautiful home. So there's a link to a GoFundMe campaign if you can give. That's all I'm going to say. I usually lose viewers over this, so please don't go away, okay? It's not a pledge drive. Roland says he loves those disaster movies. I know you do, Roland. Roland's in Austria, so he's watching Knight Rider right now. Okay, Daryl. Let's wrap it up, my friends. Let's
what are we going to do next week?
That's a good question. The next thing in the book is silent movies, silent horror films. What do we got? Caligari, Nosferatu, Phantom. I mean, I've seen all of them. It's been a long time since I've seen Caligari, and we talked about going to see the new Nosferatu, but I don't know that I want to.
Yeah.
It's not getting very good reviews.
Well, if you don't want to do those,
we got Bond too. I mean,
I was gonna say we're mixing it up here. We got silent horror movies, we got James Bond, and we got Fred Astaire movies. So which way do you want to go?
Boy,
or we could just dive into French New Wave film.
French New Wave. Let's not jump that far. Let's not jump over that many categories. Let's. You know what? Roland is in the chat still, I think. Roland, what do you want to hear? What do you want to talk? What do you want to discuss? Because I want to talk about it with you too when we're on Twitch.
I love Fred Astaire movies, just so you know.
He says I watched Knight Rider in '87.
Yeah.
Roland, what are you less familiar with? Silent horror films or Bond? Let's make it a choice of two. Okay, we got to keep it easy here. But everybody knows Bond, right?
Fred.
Oh, you son of a bitch! All right, fine. I gotta stop cursing. This is my new gimmick. I've gotten to that age now where I've decided I'm not gonna say fuck anymore. Fudge, fiddle faddle,
Yeah.
right? Poppycock. All right, fine.
I don't
Fred
know.
Astaire. Fred is you. All right, let's do it.
Have you ever seen a Fred Astaire Ginger Rogers movie?
Man, I haven't. I
Mm.
haven't. I don't
I
want
mean-
to. We'll see what I can find streaming.
Oh, I think
About
you'll be
that?
able to find them. They're probably easily found.
Yeah.
I don't. I guess we can talk about it next week. I actually just really like them. They're cotton candy. They're lightweight, stupid. You know,
Oh, so it'll be a big difference from this week.
yeah, stupid movies, but I don't know, they're fun, and the dancing is great. I don't know. I'm a sucker for them. So what kind of Fred Astaire was born in Austria. I had no idea.
Oh, yeah. I think I did know that. Yeah.
Wow.
Look how you write it too, without an E on it. Fred
Yeah,
Astaire.
exactly.
See, Roland.
Right.
All right, I think I might log in on Twitch because I'm caffeined up, so I'll be playing some video games in a bit, you guys. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Oh, I wanted to mention something. You know what this is right here? This is this is a short box. It's a comic book short box, and you get about 250 comic books in here. On Wednesday, I'm going to start pricing these books. How much? What is it worth? What's it worth? What do you think? I don't know. Let's find out. We're talking about collecting things. What do you collect? Collecting wealth. It's not just about comic books. It's about all kinds of things. Do you collect spoons? There's some expensive spoons out there. Let's talk about it. Let's have some fun. Wednesdays at 3, it's Collecting Wealth with Dave and me from Frankenson. Blessings to all of those who are suffering from the wildfires. Is that it? I think that's it. Let's go.
All right. See you next
Bye for
week.
now.
All right.